Hi, welcome back to the Dr. Page Show. Today we have a special guest here from Muskego High School who is going to be telling us about an essay she wrote for an upcoming AP Government and Politics test. Say hello to Amy Misch. Hi.
Hi.
So the question for the AP Government and Politics test was that the framers of the U.S. Constitution created a legislative system that was bicameral. However, it is not just bicameral. The framers also established two houses of distinctly different character and authority. Discuss two reasons why the framers created a bicameral legislature. Identify one power unique to the House of Representatives and explain why the framers gave the House that power. And identify one power unique to the Senate and explain why the framers gave the Senate that power. So why don't you start by reading your essay?
All right, Dr. Page. The framers, who were the original founding fathers of the Constitution, created a bicameral legislature. A bicameral legislature, which is a two-house legislative system dividing the powers of government, was created for two reasons. First, it was established to satisfy the needs of both the smaller states and the larger states. Smaller states wanted to adjust the Articles of Confederation and a house with equal representation per state, and citizens of the state would elect representatives. The larger states wanted a house based on population, which they later received as the House of Representatives. Another reason for the creation of a bicameral legislature is for the fairness of the check and balance system. One defines the check and balance system as a system where powers are evenly distributed in the government. This provides for each part to check with each other. With a unicameral legislature, it cannot check within itself. It thus weakens the check and balance system. On the other hand, a bicameral legislature, it can check within itself each part, maximizing the powers of the check and balance system. One unique power given by the framers to the House of Representatives was the power to investigate and charge a president or vice president with impeachment. Impeachment can be defined as bringing a president or vice president to trial of a crime or high misdemeanor. This power was given to the House of Representatives because the House is closer to the population. Thus, the House's decision can reflect the people better. One unique power given by the framers to the Senate was the power to try a president or vice president on the charges brought up by the House of Representatives. This power was given to the Senate because they serve 6-year terms so that they are more familiar with the administration of the executive branch. The Senate gets the power of trial to keep in check with the other branches of government.
Thank you, Amy. Now we're going to bring in AP reader Annie Lee to make comments on the essay. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Nice to see you, Doctor.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. I've always loved your show.
Oh, thank you.
It's an
Thank
honor
you.
to be on it.
What do you think about her essay?
Let's see. Okay.
Discuss two reasons why the framers created a bicameral legislature is the first one.
Okay. So I see you did that and you listed all the reasons of creating a bicameral legislature, and you did provide two reasons, which is good.
Next one was identify one power unique to the House of Representatives and explain why the framers gave the House that power.
Can I ask if those in the first part, were they adequate reasons, or how would you grade those reasons?
Well, you were very specific on what you were saying by saying like what the small states wanted and how that contributed to the bicameral legislature. And then you also stated what the large states wanted and what they got as part of their bicameral legislature. So that was very well written. And then you also talked about checks and balances, and you correctly defined a lot of the terms I'm sure people would have missed.
You need to make sure whoever's reading it
that is
understands.
correct.
Like as if your cousin, think about your cousin, your little 10-year-old cousin, would they?
Yep, that's what we do at the AP board. we always read through and make sure that you do know the terms and definitions, because those are important when you are writing an essay, to know what you're talking about. And the next part was to identify a power given to the House of Representatives. Okay, so you did that, and you were very clear with that. You didn't have an intro or anything. You just bluntly stated it out. That's good, straightforward. You defined impeachment, incorrectly defined it. There's a lot of kids who mistake impeachment. And you explained why it was given to the House of Representatives. It's closer to the population. That is overall a really good explanation. All right, and the next part was to identify power given to the Senate. Yes. Okay. Yes. That is definitely one reason. If you can think of more reasons, that is only to your benefit. But it only asks you to list one reason and one explanation why, and you did that. So very clear. Another thing I want to point out is when you are labeling your AP essays, just label the number, don't label the parts. Because if you get something in like part A, say, and you don't explain it in part B, but it really asks for it in part B, you don't get the points for part B if you labeled it. So that way, if you don't label it altogether, it's going to just count for that section.
So just put a space in between.
Yeah, so what Amy did and her group was very nice. They just had a space in between there indicating that it was the next part. Yeah, overall, this is a very good quality work.
Thank you.
And I would say I would at least get a 4 or 5 on the test.
Thank you.
Yes.
So is there any audience question for either Annie or Amy? Yeah, you over there.
To anyone up there, can you please elaborate more on the House being closer to the people and the Senate being closer to the President's administration board?
The House is closer to the people because the elections for the House are every 2 years, and so they're not in office as long as the Senate representatives are.
And the Senate's are 6-year terms, correct?
Yes, the Senate has a 6-year term, and they're more stately. The House of Representatives is closer to the people because their terms are only 2 years, and how they're selected is by their state legislator appoints them to be in the House of Representatives. Also, the House of Representatives is closer to the people because the population takes into account how many people per state can participate in the House of Representatives. So that makes it closer to the people by being more relevant to the population than the Senate is. The House of Representatives also reflects popular views that the citizens of the United States of America have, and that also makes it closer to the people. The Senate is closer to the President administration because they are actually elected into office, such as in Wisconsin we had Tammy Baldwin elected into office.
I just want to interrupt there. That is a very good use of an example, and whenever you can, try to use examples in your paper. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. Also, the Senate has a 6-year term, so they get more familiar with the administration board and the president and how they work. This is important to make decisions with and about the administration. Because they know the administration so well, being in their 6-year term, they're better to judge it and work with the administration.
That was a good question. Thank you. Thank you to the audience for coming out to see the Dr. Page Push Show, and a special thanks to Annie and Amy. Oh, and you all have toasters underneath your seats.